My beloved child, pause for a moment. Not because someone told you to, not because you are expected to, but because something has been moving beneath the surface of your story, and tonight, for the first time in a long time, the veil is beginning to lift. You almost scrolled away. You almost treated this as another passing message, another voice, another moment, and yet something inside you hesitated. Something inside you whispered, wait. That whisper was not an accident, because what you are about to hear has been traveling toward you longer than you realize. I have watched every silent prayer you never finished. I have heard every conversation you held only inside your own heart. I have seen the nights when you convinced everyone around you that you were fine while carrying questions you could not answer. Questions about them. Questions about yourself. Questions about why certain connections refuse to disappear, even when time insists they should. And now I must tell you something that may explain more than you expected. Last night, your person heard your name again. Not by coincidence. Not in the ordinary way people imagine. And since that moment, nothing has felt the same. Listen carefully. Because this story is not unfolding only around them. It is unfolding around you as well. You have been noticing unusual feelings recently. Moments when memories appeared without invitation. Moments when your thoughts drifted toward someone you had not planned to think about. Moments when you felt something changing, yet could not explain what. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were imagining things. You wondered if you were holding on to something that no longer mattered. But there are movements in the spirit that begin long before the mind understands them. And last night was one of those moments. Your person was not expecting to hear your name. The evening seemed ordinary, predictable, forgettable. Nothing about it suggested that a turning point was approaching. Yet the greatest shifts often arrive disguised as ordinary moments. A casual conversation, a passing comment, a familiar voice, a forgotten photograph, a memory that suddenly refuses to stay buried. And then it happened. Your name entered the room. Just a name. Simple, brief, almost insignificant to everyone else, but not to them. The instant they heard it, something moved. Something they had spent months, perhaps years, trying to keep still. Something they believed they had already understood. Something they thought they had already accepted. And for a few seconds, the world around them continued as normal. People kept talking. Time kept moving. The room remained unchanged. Yet inside them, everything shifted. Because names carry more than letters. They carry memories, emotions, stories, unfinished chapters. And your name carries all of those things for this person. More than they have admitted. More than they have revealed. Perhaps even more than they fully understand themselves. My child, there are moments when people realize they have been surviving instead of living. Moments when they suddenly recognize that what they buried never truly disappeared. It only waited. And that is what began happening last night. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Not in a way anyone else could see. But deep within them, a quiet awakening began. A realization. A recognition. A feeling they could not immediately explain. And that feeling followed them long after the conversation ended. Long after the room emptied. Long after the noise faded. Because some names echo. And yours echoed. Again. And again. And again. The more they tried to ignore it, the louder the silence became. Strange, isn't it? How silence can become louder than noise. Yet that is exactly what happened. When they finally found themselves alone, something unexpected occurred. The distractions stopped working. The routines stopped working. The excuses stopped working. The walls they had carefully built around certain emotions suddenly felt fragile. For a long time, they convinced themselves they had clarity. They convinced themselves they knew exactly where they stood, exactly how they felt, exactly what mattered. But clarity built on avoidance eventually collapses. And last night, cracks began appearing. Small at first, almost invisible, but enough to let truth begin finding its way through. Do you know what frightened them the most? Not sadness, not regret, not uncertainty. It was recognition. Recognition is powerful because once you see something clearly, you cannot return to blindness. Once a truth reveals itself, pretending becomes exhausting. And your person is becoming tired of pretending. Tired of pretending certain memories do not matter. Tired of pretending certain feelings disappeared. Tired of pretending your name means less than it actually does. Yet this is only the beginning. Because what happened after they heard your name is something they still cannot fully explain. Hours later, they found themselves remembering details they thought they had forgotten. Not major moments. Not the obvious memories. The small ones. The dangerous ones. The memories that slip past defenses. The little things. A look. A laugh. A sentence. A feeling. A moment that seemed ordinary at the time but now appears precious. And suddenly they understood something. The reason those memories survived was because they were never meaningless. Meaningless things disappear. Meaningful things remain. And despite everything that has happened, despite every attempt to move forward without fully looking back, pieces of you remained. Hidden. Protected. Waiting. My beloved child, there is something else you must understand. The heart rarely works according to human timelines. People think they can schedule emotions, control connections, decide when certain chapters are finished. But the heart often follows deeper laws. Laws that cannot be manipulated. Laws that cannot be rushed. Laws that answer to truth rather than convenience. Your person has been standing near a realization for longer than they know. But last night pushed them closer. Closer than they have been in a very long time. And the strange part? They did not see it coming. That is why it affected them so deeply. Had they expected it, they could have prepared, built defenses, created distractions, constructed explanations. But unexpected truth has a way of slipping past every defense. And that is exactly what happened. Now they find themselves asking questions. Questions they thought were already answered. Questions they believed belonged to the past. Questions they never intended to revisit. Yet here they are. Awake, thinking, wondering, remembering, and every path their thoughts travel somehow circles back to the same place, back to your name, back to your presence, back to the mystery they have never completely solved. You may not see this, you may not hear this, you may not have any physical evidence that these shifts are occurring, but not every transformation announces itself immediately. Some begin quietly, like dawn arriving before anyone notices the sky changing. The horizon does not become bright in a single second. It happens gradually, almost invisibly, until suddenly everyone realizes morning has arrived. That is the season your person has entered. A season of realization. A season of awakening. A season where old assumptions no longer feel secure. And yet there is something even deeper happening. Something I have not revealed yet. Because the story did not end when they heard your name. That was only the door. What happened afterward matters even more. Hours after the conversation ended, they encountered something unexpected. At first, they dismissed it. They told themselves it was random, coincidental, unimportant. But the feeling remained. A persistent feeling. A feeling that something was trying to get their attention. Not through fear. Not through pressure. But through remembrance. And remembrance is powerful. Because remembrance reconnects people with truths they abandoned. Truths they doubted. Truths they overlooked. And the more they tried to focus on other things, the more impossible it became. Your energy kept appearing. Not physically. Not dramatically, but unmistakably, like a melody they had not heard in years suddenly playing somewhere in the distance. Familiar, comforting, impossible to ignore. My child, there are reasons certain connections survive storms that should have destroyed them. Reasons certain people continue appearing in each other's stories. Reasons certain names refuse to disappear. The world calls it coincidence. Heaven often calls it preparation. And preparation is happening now, though neither of you can fully see it yet. That is why you have felt restless. That is why certain emotions have resurfaced. That is why old questions have returned. Because movements are taking place behind the scenes. Movements neither of you control. Movements neither of you completely understand. But movements nonetheless. And now we arrive at the part that changes everything. Because hearing your name was not the most important event of the night. No, the most important event came afterward, when they finally stopped running from what they felt. Only for a moment, only briefly, but long enough for a truth to reach them. A truth they have resisted, a truth they have questioned, a truth they have pushed away repeatedly. And when that truth arrived, it brought with it a realization so unexpected that they sat in silence. Not because they had answers, but because they suddenly recognized how many answers they never truly had. For the first time in a long time, certainty left them, and uncertainty entered. Yet this uncertainty was different, not fearful, not chaotic, hopeful. Because some uncertainties appear when possibilities begin returning. Possibilities they thought were gone. Possibilities they believed no longer existed. Possibilities connected to you. Connected to your story. Connected to a future neither of you fully imagined. But do not rush ahead. Not yet. Because there is still something hidden. One final piece from last night that must be understood. Something your person has told absolutely no one. Something they have not spoken aloud. Something they are still trying to understand. And that secret is the reason they woke up today feeling different. The reason familiar routines suddenly feel unfamiliar. The reason ordinary conversations seem strangely distant. The reason your name continues echoing through their thoughts. Because after everything that happened, after every memory, after every realization, after every question, a single image appeared in their mind, unexpected, clear, persistent, and no matter how hard they tried to focus elsewhere, that image refused to leave. The shocking part? The image involved you, not the version of you from the past, not the version they expected to remember. But a version they had never truly seen before. A version connected to a future possibility. A future possibility so powerful that it unsettled everything they thought they knew. And when they finally understood what they were seeing. When they finally understood why that image would not disappear. Their heart reacted in a way they never expected. A way they are still trying to make sense of. A way that has begun setting into motion events neither of you are prepared to see yet. And what that image revealed. What it showed them. What it awakened inside them. Is the very thing I will reveal next. But not tonight. Because before that truth can be understood, you must first discover why this image appeared now. And why heaven chose this exact moment to place it before them. And when that answer comes, you will understand why nothing has felt the same since your name was heard again last night. There is a reason your spirit has been restless. There is a reason certain thoughts have returned without warning. There is a reason this message found you at precisely this moment instead of yesterday, instead of last month, instead of some distant future. Because what began unfolding last night did not stop when your person closed their eyes. In truth, that was when the deeper part of the story began. Listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal is not something your person expected, not something they planned, not something they would have chosen if given the opportunity to remain comfortable. Yet heaven rarely works through comfort alone. Growth often arrives through revelation, and revelation arrived after the room became quiet, after the conversations ended, after the distractions faded. Your person found themselves sitting alone. Perhaps they appeared calm on the outside. Perhaps anyone watching would have assumed nothing unusual was happening. But inside them, something had already changed. The sound of your name had opened a door. And now memories were moving through that doorway. Not forced, not summoned, simply arriving, one after another, like stars appearing in a night sky. At first they tried to push them away. They told themselves they were overthinking. They told themselves it was only nostalgia, only emotion, only imagination. Yet the harder they tried to dismiss it, the stronger it became. Because what was happening was not simple remembrance. It was recognition. Recognition of something they had overlooked. Recognition of something they had misunderstood. Recognition of something they had never fully allowed themselves to feel. And then it happened. The image. The one I spoke of before. The image that would not leave. The image that changed everything. My beloved child, your person did not see a memory. That would have been easier. They did not see the past. That would have been familiar. Instead, they saw possibility. And possibility can be far more powerful than memory. Because memory reminds people of what was. Possibility reminds them of what still could be. For a brief moment, your person imagined a version of life they had not allowed themselves to imagine before. A version where certain walls no longer existed. A version where certain fears no longer controlled them. A version where certain truths could finally be spoken. And somehow, someway, you were there, not as a distant thought, not as an unfinished chapter, not as a shadow from yesterday. You were there as something alive, something present, something real. The image lasted only seconds, yet those seconds felt longer than entire years, because within those moments, they felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Hope, real hope, not the fragile kind, not wishful thinking, not fantasy, the deeper kind. The kind that appears when the heart recognizes something before the mind catches up, and that frightened them, because hope changes people. Hope asks questions. Hope challenges conclusions. Hope reopens doors people worked hard to close. For a long time, your person believed they had accepted the way things were. Perhaps they convinced themselves certain opportunities were gone. Perhaps they convinced themselves certain feelings no longer mattered. Perhaps they convinced themselves they had moved on completely. But last night exposed a hidden truth. Acceptance built upon avoidance is not true acceptance. It is merely postponement. And postponement has an expiration date. Last night, theirs arrived. The strange thing is that they still cannot fully explain what happened. If someone asked them today why they feel different, they would struggle to answer. If someone asked them what changed, they might not have the words. Because the deepest transformations often happen beneath language, before words, before explanations, before understanding. And that is where they are now, standing between what they thought they knew and what they are beginning to discover. My child, I need you to understand something important. This story is not only about them, it is also about you. Because while your person was experiencing these realizations, your spirit was sensing movement too. You may have noticed it. A sudden memory, a strange feeling, an unexpected emotional shift, a moment where your attention drifted toward them without any obvious reason. You questioned it. You wondered why. You tried to rationalize it. Yet some connections communicate long before words arrive. That is why certain people think of one another at the same time. That is why certain emotions seem to travel across distance. That is why some names appear unexpectedly in both hearts. The physical world notices coincidence. The spiritual world notices alignment. And alignment has been increasing, quietly, gradually, patiently, until now. That is why this moment matters. Because your person is beginning to see something they previously could not see. Not because the truth changed, but because they changed. Growth alters perspective. Healing alters perspective. Time alters perspective. And last night, perspective shifted. Suddenly they began questioning old assumptions, old narratives, old conclusions. Things they once treated as absolute no longer feel certain. Things they once ignored now feel significant. Things they once dismissed now demand attention. And every road leads back to the same place. Back to your name. Back to your energy. Back to the connection they tried so hard to define. Or perhaps avoid defining. Yet there is another detail I have not revealed. Something that occurred shortly before sleep finally found them. Something small. So small most people would overlook it. Yet heaven often speaks through the smallest moments. As they sat alone, thinking about everything that had happened, a question surfaced. A single question. Simple, quiet, dangerously honest. And the moment that question appeared, everything became different. The question was not about the past. Not directly. It was not about mistakes. Not about regret. Not about blame. It was about possibility. What if? 3 words. Nothing more. What if? My beloved child, entire destinies have shifted because of those words. What if I misunderstood? What if there is more to the story? What if something remains unfinished? What if what I felt was real? What if the connection never disappeared? What if? And once that question appeared, it refused to leave. The more they tried to move away from it, the more it followed. Because some questions are invitations. Invitations toward truth. Invitations toward growth. Invitations toward revelation. And your person has accepted that invitation without even realizing it. Now something remarkable is happening. A process has begun. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, yet powerfully. They are re-examining memories. Not through the lens of fear. Not through the lens of ego. Not through the lens of pain. But through a new lens. A lens of understanding. And understanding changes everything. Moments that once seemed ordinary suddenly carry meaning. Conversations that once seemed insignificant suddenly feel important. Details once ignored suddenly stand out. The heart is connecting pieces. The spirit is connecting pieces. And each piece leads toward a realization they can no longer avoid. Yet before that realization fully arrives, another event must occur. An event already approaching. An event closer than they realize. You see, heaven rarely reveals everything at once. That would be overwhelming. Instead, revelation comes layer by layer, step by step, moment by moment. And the next layer is already moving into place. Your person does not know this yet. They believe last night was the event. They believe hearing your name was the turning point. But it was only the beginning. Only the first ripple. The wave has not arrived yet. And when it does, it will carry something unexpected. Something neither of you anticipated. Something connected to a truth hidden beneath the surface for far longer than either of you realize. The signs are already appearing. Small signs. Subtle signs. Easy to miss unless you know where to look. A conversation that feels strangely meaningful. A memory that refuses to fade. An unexpected reminder. A feeling that lingers longer than it should. Each one seems insignificant alone. Yet together they are creating momentum. And momentum is powerful. Because once it begins, stopping it becomes difficult. That is why your person feels unsettled today. Not because something is wrong, but because something is moving. The spirit recognizes movement before the mind understands it. And movement is everywhere now. Even as you listen. Even as these words reach you. Even as you wonder. How much of this could possibly be true? There are things happening behind the curtain. Conversations not yet spoken. Realizations not yet completed. Decisions not yet made. Yet all of them are moving toward a single destination. Toward clarity. And clarity is coming. Faster than either of you expect. But before clarity arrives, there must first be one more awakening. One more realization. One more moment that changes everything. And that moment is connected to a secret your person has carried for much longer than anyone knows. A secret hidden beneath logic, beneath pride, beneath fear. A secret they rarely admit even to themselves. The secret is not what they think about you. The secret is why they never stop thinking about you. There is a difference. A very important difference. And when they finally uncover the answer to that question, when they finally understand the reason your name still affects them, when they finally see what heaven has been trying to show them all along, the next chapter of this story will begin, because another moment is approaching, a moment involving an unexpected realization, a realization so powerful that when it arrives, your person will sit completely still, not because they are confused, but because for the first time, everything will suddenly make sense. And when that moment comes, the first thing they will remember is not the conversation from last night, not the image, not the memories, not even the questions. They will remember one specific thing about you, one detail, one truth, one realization they have overlooked for far too long. And that realization is already on its way, closer than either of you can imagine. Much closer than they believe. And when it finally arrives, the story will take a turn neither of you saw coming.